Hey everyone, and welcome to the Zen of Tech. I'm Daniel, and welcome to my final Leaks and Rumors series. The series in which I discuss in detail everything you need to know about an upcoming device. So in my previous episodes, I covered quite a lot of stuff. The Samsung Galaxy S7, the LG G5, the iPhone 7, and the iPhone 6e/iPhone 5 SE as well. So in case you missed any of these episodes and you want to check those out as well, I left them all linked in the description box down below, by the way. So in part 1 of my iPhone 7 Final Leaks and Rumors series, I covered the display and the design. That was a pretty long video. It was 15 minutes focused only on the display and the design. Yeah, I covered them pretty in depth. So in case you haven't seen the first part, go ahead, watch that part first, and then come back and continue with this video. But yeah, this is the second part of the series, and in this one, I'll be covering the next sections. Enjoy. Okay, so starting off with section number 3, actually continuing with section number 3, we have the specs. So in terms of the specs, the iPhone 6s is a beast. The Apple A9 chip is still the most powerful mobile chip there is right now, and apparently not even the Snapdragon 820 is going to surpass its performance. And on paper at least, compared to other CPUs, the A9 looks pretty weak. It's a dual-core 1.84 GHz processor. Yes, it is 64-bit and it's also based on a 14nm process, but dual-core 1.84 GHz, it looks really weak. But the A9 chip, as I said before, is the world's most powerful mobile chip. And just to give you an idea how powerful the Apple A9 chip actually is, I've done a really in-depth video covering just this, the true performance of the A9 chip. So I compared the A9 chip versus the most powerful chip from Qualcomm on the market right now, the Snapdragon 810, and then I also compared it to some Intel processors. The Broadwell Intel Core M, a dual-core i5 2.7 GHz Intel Haswell chip, and then finally a 2.3 GHz quad-core Intel i7 Haswell chip. So I did a lot of benchmarks, and then I also did some 4K editing tests on all of these machines, and the results were really surprising. The A9 chip easily defeated the Snapdragon 810, the Intel Core M as well, even the i5 inside the MacBook Air, and it was just a few seconds slower than a 2.3 GHz Intel quad-core i7 chip. So yeah, the performance of this thing is just insane. In case you want to watch that video, see all of these tests that I did, I've included a link to this video in the description box down below, by the way. So yeah, the A9 chip is incredibly powerful, and every single year when Apple introduces a new iPhone model, they also introduce a brand new CPU model. So with the iPhone 6, we had the Apple A8 chip, with the iPhone 6s, we had the A9 chip, and now with the 7, we're going to have the Apple A10 chip. Okay, so what do we know about the Apple A10 chip? Well, we know that it's still going to be a 64-bit chip based on a 14nm process. We're not going to see a major performance increase from the A9. That huge performance increase is going to happen with the iPhone 7s. So with the Apple A11 chip, they'll probably change its name. So yeah, the Apple A10 chip might actually be called the Apple AX chip. And then they'll probably move to X1, X2, X3, and so on. But yeah, when compared to the raw performance, the Apple A8 wasn't that much powerful than the A7. However, the Apple A9 was a huge performance boost from the A8. And even though we're not going to see a huge performance boost with the Apple A10, we're definitely going to see a pretty major power consumption increase. And by power consumption increase, I actually mean power consumption decrease, because this thing is going to be really power efficient. Apple might finally move to a triple core chip. So yeah, the A10 might actually be Apple's first triple core chip in an iPhone. And finally, some of you might know that the A9 was produced by both TSMC and Samsung. Yeah, Samsung produced a chip for Apple. They actually produce a lot of components, by the way, for a lot of phones. Fun fact. Not just CPUs. Okay, well, Apple used two manufacturers because they wanted to keep up with the production. And that's true, but those two CPUs from Samsung and TSMC, they were quite different. TSMC's version was based on a 16nm process, and Samsung's version was based on a 14nm process. What does this mean? Well, at least on paper, Samsung's version is a lot more power efficient than a 16nm process that TSMC was producing. However, for some weird reason, no idea why because this doesn't even make sense, for some reason the A9 chips produced by Samsung actually had a weaker battery life than the ones produced by TSMC. And Austin Evans did a really in-depth test on this, compared both chips and wanted to see exactly which one would reach 50% battery life from 100% the quickest. And yeah, you guessed that the A9 chip produced by Samsung reached 50% battery life first, and then the one produced by TSMC was 50 minutes behind. If you multiply that by 2, you get almost 2 hours of extra battery life on a TSMC chip. I couldn't do this test myself because both of my iPhone 6s had TSMC chips. But yeah, feel free to watch Austin's video if you want to know more about this topic. I left it linked in the description box down below, by the way. Oh, and also the TSMC chips actually ran a lot cooler than the ones produced by Samsung. So for the iPhone 7, Apple is going to switch all A10 production from Samsung to TSMC. So Samsung is no longer going to produce any chips for Apple. Now in terms of the RAM, the iPhone 6s comes with 2 GB of RAM. And some of you might say that, come on, 2 GB in a phone, that's a joke, because now we have Android phones with 4 GB of RAM, double the amount of RAM in the iPhone 6s, so yeah. But no, Apple's RAM management is just insane. In my Apple A9 chip performance test, I even compared the RAM. I compared the 2 GB of RAM that you get with the iPhone 6s versus 1 GB that you get with the iPhone 6 versus 4 GB of RAM that you get in the OnePlus 2. And I just wanted to see which phone can actually hold more apps, more data open in the background. And yeah, the results were really surprising. Yeah, Apple has some insane RAM management. So some rumors suggest that the iPhone 7 will actually come with 3 GB of RAM instead of 2. However, I still think that Apple will reserve that 3 GB of RAM for the iPhone 7s. Now there is a chance that we'll still see 3 GB of RAM in the iPhone 7, not the regular iPhone 7, with the iPhone 7 Plus. So this might actually happen. 3 GB in the iPhone 7 Plus, and then 2 GB in the regular iPhone 7. And then 3 or even 4 GB, most likely 3, in both models with the iPhone 7s. Now with the iPhone 6s, its biggest downside was the fact that it only came with 16 GB of storage. The baseline model only came with 16 GB. Yeah, 16 GB for 2015 flagship, which can also record 4K videos. Speaking of 16 GB, once again, I did a video on this thing as well. I tested out to see if you can actually live with a 16 GB iPhone 6s and use all of its features, including 4K video recording. So that's a pretty cool test experiment I did. In case you want to check this out as well, I left this linked in the description box down below as well. Yeah, the baseline 16 GB model is finally going away with the iPhone 7, so we're most likely going to see the iPhone 7 coming in 32, 64, and 128, 32 being obviously the baseline model. We're still not going to see any microSD card expansion, by the way, so don't expect that. The Samsung Galaxy S7 is going to come with one, by the way. So 32, 64, and 128, but there might be just one more model, one more iPhone 7 model that's going to come with 256 GB of storage. So this is just a rumor for now, but it is said that Apple is working on an iPhone 7 Plus with 256 GB of storage. Speaking of this, by the way, let me know in the comment section down below how much storage do you have on your phone and how much of that storage do you actually use. I have 64 GB of storage on my phone and I've used about 57. What about you? Let me know. Okay, so these were the specs. Now moving on to the next section of this video, section number 4, we have the camera. Now the camera on the iPhone 6s was a pretty big win for Apple. The camera on the iPhone 6s was one of the best cameras on any smartphone, one of the best, but not the best. It was really close to the one found in the Samsung Galaxy S6 and the Note 5. However, those cameras were just slightly better than the one on the 6s, mostly in low light and in 4K video recording, and I'll get to why in a second. But yeah, overall the iPhone 6s's camera was amazing. None of my photos were over or underexposed. Whenever I took a shot, I knew that that shot was going to be pretty good. So the first change in terms of the camera is going to be no more protruding camera. So the camera is going to be flushed, just as I mentioned in the first section of this video, the design. Now I mentioned before that the reason why the iPhone 6s's camera didn't beat the Samsung Galaxy S6 or the Note 5 was because of the low light performance and because of that optical image stabilization. Now in terms of the low light performance, there are actually two things which make a camera really good in low light. So each camera has a sensor. The bigger the sensor, the better the camera is in low light. Dedicated cameras and DSLRs have some insane low light capabilities, and that's just because the sensor is huge on those things. But on smartphones, that sensor is really small. So the pixel size, the size of the pixels inside the sensor is crucial here. Obviously, the bigger the pixels, the more light they can catch. And the iPhone 6s came with 1.22 micron size pixels. And we're expecting to see slightly larger pixels from 1.22 to something like 1.3. And then the second thing that makes a phone camera really good in low light is its aperture. Again, the larger the aperture, the better, because more light gets to the sensor. The iPhone 6s came with an aperture size of f2.2, which was not that great to be honest. The Samsung Galaxy S6 came with f1.9. f1.9 is larger than f2.2 because it's f over something, so the smaller the number, the larger the aperture. And then the LG G4 was the king of low light photography because it came with an f1.8 aperture. And with the iPhone 7, we're finally expecting to see an increase in the aperture size from f2.2 to an f1.9. So this is the second camera change in terms of low light photography. The megapixel count is going to stay the same at 12 megapixels just like we had with the iPhone 6s, but there's something really interesting when it comes to the camera. Apple is actually working on a dual lens camera system. So if you remember my iPhone 6s Final Leaks and Rumors video, the one that I did last year, in that video I actually told you guys that the iPhone 6s might just come with a dual lens camera system, one developed by Lynx Technologies. So yeah, Lynx Imaging is a company that specializes in dual lenses camera arrays, and Apple bought that company last year in 2015. And what does this company actually do? Well, the company develops some really advanced dual lens camera systems for portable devices. And by combining two lenses, according to Lynx, they can achieve DSLR-like quality photos on a smartphone. Well, this sounds cool, but how does it actually work? Well, you have two lenses, and each lens has a different focal length. So essentially, one lens captures a zoomed out shot, and the other one captures a zoomed in shot. And then the camera software combines those two images to make a single image, which is what, other cameras take today. And these are just a few examples. The photo taken with the Lynx camera looks much brighter. It actually has less noise. The colors look more natural. And overall, the Lynx cameras are really, really good in low light, and these are just a few examples. And there are so many ways that you could use this dual lens camera system. You could refocus a shot after it was taken, like on the HTC One M8 for example. You could essentially get optical zoom out of these. 3D mapping, depth mapping, lots of things are possible with Lynx's dual lens camera system. So this looks really cool, and apparently this dual lens camera system is coming on the iPhone 7. However, there's a strong possibility that we'll only see this dual lens camera system on the iPhone 7 Plus. And not the regular iPhone 7. The iPhone 7 is most likely going to get a single array camera system. I really prefer this isn't true because I prefer the smaller size of the iPhone 7 and not the Plus. But yeah, if this only makes it to the iPhone 7 Plus, this also means that the iPhone 7 is still going to come with a protruding camera. Because yeah, the iPhone 7 is going to be thinner, which I discussed in part 1 of the video, and there's not enough space inside the phone for a recessed camera of that quality. So a dual lens camera system would actually fix this protruding camera issue. And if this happens, Apple is definitely going to have to tweak the iPhone 7 a bit, just because there are too many reasons to get the iPhone 7 Plus over the iPhone 7 now. A high resolution display, a much better camera, a recessed camera, obviously a bigger battery, and so on. So much more reasons to get an iPhone 7 Plus than an iPhone 7. And I personally prefer the size of the 7 and not the Plus. What do you guys think? What's your favorite smartphone screen size? 4 inches, 4.7, 5 inches, 5.2, 5.5, or 6? Or I don't know, let me know. So one of these improvements that we'll most likely see on the iPhone 7 is in terms of the optical image stabilization. So optical image stabilization at the moment is only available on the iPhone 6s Plus and not the regular iPhone 6s. So we might just see it on the iPhone 7 now, or if we don't see it, then we're probably going to see digital image stabilization on 4K video recording as well, because now with the iPhone 6s you only have digital image stabilization with 1080p videos and not 4K videos, and 4K videos on the 6s look really shaky. Now the front-facing camera on the other hand is most likely going to stay pretty much the same. So we're still going to get a 5 megapixel sensor. 8 megapixels is not that likely for Apple to include. So 5 megapixel sensor with an f2.2, maybe even an f1.9 aperture this time, coming from f2.2. So better low light performance on the front-facing camera as well. The Retina flash, that pretty cool Retina flash, is still going to be here, so it's not going anywhere. In terms of the video quality on the front-facing camera, up until now the iPhone 6s could record 720p video, which is not that great. So Apple is definitely going to bump that from 720p to 1080p, not 4K. We're not going to see a 4K camera on the front, but a 1080p one, and that's pretty good for me. What do you guys think? And yeah, this was basically everything in terms of the specs and the camera. This was a really long video once again. So yeah, I'll cover the remaining parts in part 3 of the video, which is most likely going to be the final section of my iPhone 7 leaks and rumor series. So feel free to subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss that part out. Also feel free to give this video a like if you have enjoyed it, and don't forget to check out my previous episodes of the series, covering the Samsung Galaxy S7, the LG G5, and the iPhone 6C/the iPhone 5SE. Also, if you are a subscriber, don't forget to turn on notifications on my channel so that you're notified whenever I upload a brand new epic video. But yeah, this has been pretty much it. Let me know in the comment section down below, in your opinion, what's the best iPhone 7 that Apple could make. What are your top 5 most requested iPhone 7 features? Definitely let me know. But this has been pretty much it, so thank you for watching this video. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you in my next one. Zen of Tech, signing out. Cheers.